of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I never knew. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
What a wonderful world, says Louis Armstrong from back in 1967. And he really meant it too. Louis was clear that the world was a wonderful place, and in his own words, he said, it ain't the world that's so bad, but what we're doing to it. And all I'm saying is, see, what a wonderful world it would be if only we'd give it a chance. And you can't argue with that. Good morning. This is 2BBB FM, and thanks for tuning in to Tune Up with the Soul Mechanic this morning, this wonderful Monday morning. We're together for the next few hours, and this week we're going to have a chat with our specialist in the workshop, Bede Brennan, about birds and shit gardens. We'll also be talking with expert mechanic Bentley about Christmas time and the challenges that can sometimes come up when families are suddenly thrust together for short and intense periods of time. But to get things going, we have a happy song.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. Mama, hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Yeah. But give me all you got and don't hold it back. Yeah. Well, I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. Yeah. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want.
Holly came from Miami, FLA. Hitchhiked her way across USA. Plucked her eyebrows on the way. Shaved her legs and then he was a she. She says, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. Said, hey honey, take a walk on the wild side. Candy came from out on the island. In the back room she was everybody's darling. But she never lost her head. Even when she was given head, she says, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. Said, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. And the colored girls go do 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 do. Little Joe never once gave it away. Everybody had to pay and pay. A hustle here and a hustle there. New York City is the place where they said, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. I said, hey Joe, take a walk on the wild side. Sugar Plum Fairy came and hit the streets, looking for soul food and a place to eat. Went to the Apollo, you should have seen him go, go, go. They said, hey sugar, take a walk on the wild side. I said, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. Alright. Ha. Jackie is just speeding away. Thought she was James Dean for a day. Then I guess she had to crash. Valium would have helped that patch. I said, hey babe, take a walk on the wild side. I said, hey honey, take a walk on the wild side. And the colored girls say, do 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 do. Do 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 do.
Hey your bicycle? Hey little sister shotgun, oh yeah. Hey little sister, who's your Superman? Hey little sister shotgun. It's a nice day to start again. It's a nice day for a white wedding. It's a nice day to start again. Ow!
It's a nice day to start again, says Billy Idol in his song there, White Wedding. And that's not a bad approach to life at all. Every day, in fact, every moment presents the opportunity for us to start again, to leave the past behind us and work with what is in front of us. Before that, we took a walk on the wild side with Lou Reed, and heading up that segment was Because I'm Happy, and that was by DJ Into House. You're listening to Tune Up on 2BBB and the time is 7:21. It's also time for us to wander over to the workshop and catch up with this week's special guest, Bede Brennan. In the workshop with me this morning is Bede Brennan as our specialist. He's a landscape architect from Melbourne. He was raised in Bellingen, spent a long time in Bellingen, and he has many areas of specialty. I'm not quite sure which one we're going to tune in on today. We're going to leave that to him. But he's a very good landscape architect. He's exceedingly good at having fun. He's the co-founder of a very hilarious Instagram offering, I suppose you'd say, called Shit Gardens. And he's passionate about birds, so I'm not quite sure where this is going to go. But for me, I'm most interested in having a bit of a chat about Shit Gardens and how that came about. Undoubtedly, it's a result of your interest in all things landscape and environment and gardens. Bit interested to know how that came about and where it's up to. If you could tell us a little bit about that, Bede.
G'day, Soul Mechanic. So, it's a bit of a Bellingen story, because I think Shit Gardens started with me and the co-founder James, both being Bellingen born and bred, and we both moved to Melbourne at a similar time of our lives, and were just astounded by how crappy gardens can be when you leave the beauty of Bellingen. But we gained a fascination for them. So we found these artifacts of really bad taste, but we didn't find them to just be shit. We found them to be fascinating, and then we found ourselves kind of poking around, taking photos. We kind of did it to amuse ourselves to start with, and then we put a few on Instagram, and suddenly it snowballed into something a bit bigger.
So how long has Shit Gardens been going for now?
Ages. Long enough that it's probably not as exciting as it once was, but I think we've been doing it for 5 or 6 years.
Yes.
And in that time, we've published a book, we've done exhibitions, we've ended up in various magazines and interviewed by all sorts of people, which has been a wild ride. I'd say it's all calming down a bit now. We've gone from being posting very regularly to putting it a little bit on the back burner. But still ticking along.
Still ticking along. It's hard to keep the momentum up. How many followers have you got on Instagram, do you know?
A bit over 100,000.
Wow.
Plenty of people with an interest in shit gardens, turns out.
And what's your byline? You've got a specific byline because you're a bit on the edge here with having a look at people's gardens and commenting on them.
So I kind of alluded to it before, but our byline is a celebration, not a condemnation, because I think actually in those quirky gardens where you can see, maybe there's this grand vision, but people haven't quite realised it. They've tried to fit Versailles into their front yard in Brunswick West. But there's something really cool about that, and that should be preserved. They're kind of landmarks. They're kind of odes to bad taste. And compared to the kind of manicured, brand new regular garden, there's just something a bit more exciting and with a bit more character about some of the missteps in landscape.
I'm curious to know, have you ever had anyone come back to you who's found their garden being presented as a shit garden on Instagram, sort of come full circle, and they've made comment on that, either favourably or otherwise?
Yeah, absolutely. A few good stories that relate to that. So these days, most of our images, in fact, all of our images come from people sending things in to dob in their neighbour, or because there's a garden on the corner which has interested them for years with some sort of grotesque sculpture. But we have had a few people say, "Hey, that's my garden." And they've always been proud. They've always been stoked to have had the publicity for their project, whatever it is. The other thing we get reasonably often is people dobbing in their own garden. We have noticed a trend to what we believe are people intentionally making their own gardens a little shitter in order to try and get on the page, which is not on. The other thing, back in the earlier days of shit gardens, we did have an incident at one point where we were taking a photograph of someone's quite hilarious garden, and they appeared all of a sudden brandishing a metal rake and asking us exactly what the hell we were doing. So we put that one off. We said we were photographing a university project about the Australian suburban condition, which is not that far from being true. So and then old mate was happy to have a chat and actually gave us a cactus seedling to take on our way. That was our closest brush to conflict over the joke.
That's quite minimal, really, given the scope of your work there. If someone wants to go and check out Shit Gardens, how do they find that?
I think they can just type it into Instagram. There's quite a few articles around if they were to Google it.
Yep. Awesome. That's Shit Gardens. Now, moving along to a perhaps a little more serious area of interest, I think was your word, or enthusiasm. Birds. What's led you to birds, and you got a good bird story?
Do I have a good bird story? I've got a lot of good bird stories, but I was going to save them up for my lap questions.
Yes, you can do that. But we were actually chatting on the way in about this very studio that we sit in, and outside, which of course 2 Triple B studios in Wheatley Street, Bellingen, and outside the studios there's a mural on the front wall which I walk past every day and haven't given it the attention it probably deserves. And Bede, told me the story of it this morning, and I think that's a story worth sharing if you would like to share again. But
Yeah. So I'll paraphrase it. It's such a great little spot here in the Triple B house, and I think it was Sean Bradney George who pointed the mural out to me and first told me the story. But it's this great mural, and there's a little plaque next to it explaining it. And in summary, it's telling the story of a farmer in Dorrigo who, I think in the 30s, played the flute to some local lyrebirds. And 30 or 40 years later, the lyrebirds in that area were continuing to sing and mimic the flute song of this farmer. So that's through various generations of lyrebirds. They kept this song alive. But then the thing that gets really fascinating is in the late 60s, some scientists recorded the lyrebird song and did some analysis of it and managed to pick out two well-known songs from that period that the lyrebirds had kept alive. And I think the thing that's really special is it's kind of a metaphor for 2BBB. It's about sound being really important, keeping things alive in the community. So I think it's a really nice place to have such a great story depicted and this awesome old mural about birds.
Yeah, that is a fascinating story. So essentially a farmer played a flute to a lyrebird who then repeated that back, no doubt, as lyrebirds do. That had some sort of genetic imprinting upon the bird that was then passed on over generations.
I mean, I guess it's more like a learnt imprint. It's like a lyrebird cultural imprint.
Yes.
Where they're, sharing their song.
That's fascinating. Was it a particular song or is it just...
Yeah, I can't remember, but it says it on the outside. It could be a fun song to play, actually. I wonder what it sounds like.
We might have to research that. In fact, maybe I will.
A hit from 1939.
39, I can't imagine. Awesome. Okay, that's one bird story. If you tell us about your interest in birds, apart from that.
Well, I guess my closest relationship with some birds is I keep chickens in Melbourne. Live in urban Melbourne, but I just love chickens. So we still manage to, in our relatively small backyard, have quite a good percentage of that put over to chickens. We've just recently, every year we do a little renovation where the chicken run shifts a little bit and we use the old chicken run to grow tomatoes. So we've just done that little shift in the last little while. And we've also just gone from having just 2 chickens to having 5. So it's kind of an exciting time when you get a few new chickens, although they do tend to bully each other for a little while. But we have this situation now where, having had these urban chickens for 5 or 6 years, we also have a flock of pigeons, which we're the kind of feeders of these pigeons. Indirectly, and for quite a few years that bothered us. We had these pigeons constantly hanging around and eating all of our chicken food. But in the last little while, I've come to really admire the urban pigeons that are hanging out at our place, and especially as we've had all this horrible cold weather, looking out at the pigeons stealing the chicken food up. I think we've all come to kind of admire them more than dislike them.
So what is it about a pigeon that there is to admire specifically?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I don't think pigeons tend to be portrayed as something to be admired, but I think especially in our current times with climate change and the world being in various bits of strife, pigeons are really resilient and they're really good at bouncing back from things. They're really good. You see them in the chicken run and they just don't give up, and that's the thing that makes them so successful in the urban environment. Is they're not put off by being chased by the chickens 100 times. They'll still come down and go for grain again.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. And chickens, I assume for eggs, or...
Yeah, definitely for eggs. We actually, 2 of our chickens are at about retirement age. So they went a couple of years without laying any eggs. But I think chickens as pets is partly about that sort of sustainability thing where you're giving them your waste food, they're producing food, and they're really good for your garden. So they're really practical. But I also find the sound of chickens really comforting. I think chickens are really good for your mental health. They're always kind of scratching about, doing their thing. And I mean, I know a lot of pets are good for people's mental health. But I think growing up with chickens, I particularly find something comforting about owning chickens. And, they're not affectionate creatures by any means, but just looking out for them and making sure they're in a good environment is really important.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of exposure to chickens and quite new. I've come to them at an older age, my exposure to chickens, but I get what you're saying. It's hard to put your finger on, really, but there's this little sound that they make. Thank you. I was going to have a go myself, but you've done a much better job. You've saved me the embarrassment. Thanks so much. And that's pretty much it. And it is. And it's a very homey, sort of warm, soft, belonging sort of a feeling.
Totally. And they're just going about their thing, scratching away, have a little peck, Isn't that what we're up to?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
So one thing, I used to teach a subject at Melbourne Uni that was about geography, and a lot of the focus of that subject was about where are animals in Australia. And I used to bring in the bird field guide that everyone would have at home where you identify birds. And I would always say to my students, did you know that the most common bird in Australia, can anyone tell me what it is from this book? And people would guess, magpie, or they'd guess pigeon. And I'd say, would you believe that the most common bird in Australia doesn't occur in this book? And no one would believe me that the most common bird in Australia is not even in our bird book. And that's because it's the chicken.
Oh, wow.
So by population, chickens are by a long way the most populous bird in our country. And we don't even think of them as a bird anymore because they're so entwined in our systems. So I think it's nice to think of them as a bird again.
That's fascinating. Just are they a native bird? No. Introduced from where?
I think the chickens' ancestors are from, I could be wrong here, but from Southeast Asia somewhere. The kind of forest fowl.
But they're pretty much across the globe now, yeah?
Oh, yeah, they're the most common animal in the world.
Yeah, but not in a book.
But not in the bird identification book. I'm going to petition to have them added in.
I'll look out for that. A special petition and edition from Bede Brennan, the bird book. Thanks so much for coming in today and having a chat with your areas of specialty.
Been a pleasure. I love being part of Triple B.
Fantastic. You're listening to Tune Up on 2 Triple B FM.
for the lights, but she sees the vision going, cupping line after line. See how she looks like trouble, see how she dances and she sips the Coca-Cola. She can't tell the difference yet. That's what you're coming for, but they don't wanna let you in it. You drop your back to the floor and you're asking what's happening. It's getting late now, hey now. Enough of the arguments. But she sips the Coca-Cola. She can't tell the difference yet. 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 That's what you're coming for, but they don't wanna let you in. You drop your back to the floor and you're asking what's happening. It's getting late now, hey now. Enough of the arguments. But she sips the Coca-Cola. She can't tell the difference yet. That's what you're coming for. They don't wanna let you in. You drop your back to the floor and you're asking what's happening. It's getting late now, hey now. Enough of the arguments. But she sips the Coca-Cola. She can't tell the difference yet. Got ready for the night. She's heading for the light. But she sees the vision going, cupping line after line. See how she looks like trouble. See how she dances and she sips the Coca-Cola. She can't tell the difference yet. She can't tell the difference yet. That's what you're coming for. They don't wanna let you in. You drop your back to the floor and you're asking what's happening. It's getting late now, hey now. Enough of the arguments. She sips the Coca-Cola. She can't tell the difference yet. That's what you're coming for, but they don't wanna let you in. You drop your back to the floor and you're asking what's happening. It's getting late now, hey now. Enough of the arguments. She sips the Coca-Cola. She can't tell the difference yet.
93.3
and 107.3.
2 Triple B FM.
Now would you, Derek, this star nonsense? No, it is. I'm sure of it.
well. Heaven from hell, blue skies from pain. Can you tell a green field from a cold steel rail? A smile from a veil. Do you think you can tell? Did they get you to trade your heroes for ghosts? Hot ashes for trees, hot air for a cool breeze, cold comfort for change. Did you exchange a walk-on part in the war for a lead role in a cage? How I wish you were here. We're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year, running over the same old ground. What have we found? The same old fears. Wish you were here.
We're now going to go over and jump in our car to do 5 laps around the block with our brave passenger soul. This week, of course, it's Bede Brennan, so let's go. In the passenger seat today with me, I have Bede Brennan. You ready to go, Bede?
I'm ready to go.
Okay, strap in. Let's go. First lap. Can you tell me about your relationship with Bellingen?
All right. So grew up in Bellingen, grew up in North Bellingen. So it's a very special place to me. I live in Melbourne now, but I still come back to Bellingen, at least a few times a year. And I still find myself, especially in Melbourne, telling people that I'm from Bellingen or that Bellingen is home, even though I think it's been more than a decade since I lived in Bellingen.
Yeah, there's a well-trodden path, I say, between Bellingen and Melbourne. Second lap. What's the top feature that you appreciate about this town and why?
Okay, so good question. I've got a slightly indirect answer. So I'm going to explained a moment rather than a feature. So my moment is, and it's something I've repeated a few times in my life at different ages, it's walking down to the Providor, buying one of those fancy German beers and opening it out the front of the Providor and walking into town on this kind of dusk evening. Bats are in the air. It all smells like flowers, but also like bats, and drinking the beer on the way into town and walking over the bridge, seeing everyone down at the river and heading into town.
That's great. I was there. Well, I wasn't there with him. I was there.
You're welcome to come along for the next one.
I was there, yeah, definitely. Third lap, if you could, who would you like to do a long road trip with and get to know, and why?
So I think I'm going to pick Noel Fielding, because of a combination of, I'm imagining Noel Fielding on the Mighty Boosh is absolutely hilarious, but then also he's recently been on the Great British Bake Off, and his constant hilarious comments I think would be really useful on a long road trip. I think he'd help to keep the mood up, but also the mood a bit absurd and crazy.
Okay, Noel Fielding, Mighty Bush. What else? He was in the IT crowd too, I think, wasn't he?
I'm not sure. Maybe as a fringe character.
Fringe character, yeah. Fringe character.
Yeah.
Fourth lap. Would you be happy to share with us one of the most uplifting moments that you've experienced in your life?
Yeah, so I'm going to bring it back to birds, my area of interest. Once when I was a teenager, I was on the Guy Fawkes Walk, which is a big hike in the kind of rural New South Wales. And I got up early before anyone else, and I was skimming stones into the water, and then noticed that as I was throwing the stones, a kingfisher was following behind them. And it was just this beautiful moment of, there was mist around everywhere, there was no one else about, and every time I threw a stone, the kingfisher would chase around just behind it.
That's beautiful. Sacred kingfisher, do you know?
I think so, yeah. It was the kind of bright blue number.
Ones. Beautiful. Which there's plenty around at the moment too. If you get out in amongst it, they come back here this time of year to breed. Beautiful little creatures. Fifth lap. So I believe that everyone has a superpower, and sometimes I think these superpowers we have, people maybe don't even realise they have that superpower because it's just so natural to them. And maybe it takes a little bit of awareness to actually even know your own superpower, or be okay or confident enough to name it. And I'm wondering what your superpower is, Bede.
My superpower is the segue from the last answer. No, but my superpower really is skimming stones.
Skimming stones?
In the river.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you how or if this superpower you have, or how it translates into your professional life.
Into my professional life? I don't know if the two, in fact, I would say almost the two are opposed, because my professional life involves lots of hard thought. When I'm skimming stones, the idea is to not be thinking anything. So it's kind of something I've done ever since I was a kid, and it's something I, as soon as I come back to Bellingen, I need to go and find some flat water and some flat stones and skim some stones. But it's about, not thinking anything. You're vaguely counting how many skips you get, but it doesn't really matter either. It's just the feeling. When the feeling is right, you get this kind of a little bit of a meditation going on. So I don't know. Sorry that I didn't quite answer the question there, but
I think you have. I don't even really know what I was looking for there, but I'm going to contemplate that one. I think there's a lot more in that than meets the surface, more than the skimming along the surface.
Oh, good. And it's one of those. It's one of the few things I do. I think that I like to go and I love skimming some stones with someone else, but I particularly like going to do it by myself. Just water, rocks. 15 minutes, pretty much until your arm hurts. Done.
Fantastic. That's a great superpower, and that's Bede Brennan with his superpowers.
So if anyone wants a skimming competition, report to Triple B immediately.
Report to Triple B for a skimming competition. Catch Bede when he's in town for a skim off. Thanks, Bede. You're listening to 5 Laps Around the Block on 2BBB FM.
On the first part of I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was a fly with a buzz and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain. La, 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 la. After 2 days in the desert sun, my skin began to turn red. After 3 days in the desert fun, I was looking at a riverbed, and the story it told of a river that flowed made me sad to think it was dead. You see, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain. La, 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 la. After 9 days, I let the horse run free, 'cause the desert had turned to sea. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The ocean is a desert with its life underground and the perfect disguise above. Under the
yeah. Look around the room, I can tell that you are the most beautiful girl in the room. In the whole wide room. And when you're on the street, depending on the street, I bet you are definitely in the top 3. Good looking girls on the street, yeah. Depending on the street, ooh. And when I saw you at my mate's place, I thought, what is she doing at my mate's place? How did Dave get a hottie like that to a party like this? Good one, Dave.
Ooh, you're a legend, Dave.
I asked Dave if he's gonna make a move on you. He's not sure. I say, Dave, do you mind if I do? He says it doesn't matter, but I can tell it kinda minds. But I'm gonna do it anyway. I see you standing all alone by the stereo. I dim the lights down to very low. Here we go. You're so beautiful. Beautiful. You could be a waitress. You're so beautiful. Beautiful. Well, you could be an air hostess in the 60s. You're so beautiful. Well, you could be a part-time model. And then I seal the deal. I do my moves, I do my dance moves. Moves are my dance moves. It's trouble too, just me and you, and 7 other dudes around you on the dance floor. I draw you near, let's get out of here. Let's get in a cab. buy you a kebab. And I can't believe that I'm sharing a kebab with the most beautiful girl I have ever seen with a kebab. Ooh. Well, why don't we leave? Let's go to my house and we can feel each other up on the couch. Oh no, I don't mind taking it slow. Oh, now, yeah. 'Cause you're so beautiful, like a tree or a high-class prostitute. You're so beautiful. You could be a part-time model. You probably still have to keep your normal job. Part-time model. Spending part of your time modeling and part of your time next to me. And then the rest of your time doing your normal job. My place is usually tinier than this.
Get up in the morning slaving for bread, sir, so that every mouth can be fed. Oh, me Israelites, get up in the morning slaving for bread, sir, so that every mouth can be fed. Darling, she said I was yours to receive. The Israelite shut them a tear up choices ago. I don't want to end up like Bonnie and Clyde. The Israelite after a storm there must be a calm. Catch me in the farm, you sound your alarm. So that every mouth can be fed. Israelites, my wife and my kids to get back up and not leave me. Darling, she said I was yours to receive. Israelites, look, them a tear up choices ago. I don't want to end up like Bonnie and Clyde.
Sugar pop, rocks and pop. You don't stop till the sweet beat drops. I shall improve as I stick and move. Vivid poems recited on top of the groove. Smooth mind, floating like a butterfly. Notes set afloat, sung like a lullaby. Brace yourself as the beat hits ya. Dip, trip, flip, fantasia.
What's that?
Biddy biddy bop.
Yeah.
Biddy biddy bop.
Funky, funky.
Feel the beat drop, jazz and hip hop, dripping in your dome, it's his own and bop. Funk confusion, a fly illusion, keeps you coasting on the rhythm you're cruising. Up, down, round and round, rhymes profound, but nevertheless you got to get down. Fantasy freak through the beat so unique, you move your feet and sweat from the heat. Back to the fact, I'm the Mac and I know that. The way I kick the rhyme, someone call me a poet. Poem steady flowing, growing, showing sights and sound. Caught in the groove, invitation I'm found. Many tripped and tore upon the rhymes they soared to an infinite height, to the realm of the hardcore. Here we go, off I take ya. Dip, trip, flip, fantasia.
What's that?
Biddy biddy bop.
Yeah.
Biddy biddy bop.
Funky, funky. What's that?
Biddy biddy bop.
Yeah.
Biddy biddy bop.
Funky, funky.
Jump to the jam, boogie woogie jam slam. Bust the dialect, I'm the man in command. Come flow with the sounds of the mighty mic master. Rhyming on the mic, I'm bringing suckers to disaster. Buku ducks, but I still rock Nike. With the razzle dazzle, a star I might be. Scribble, jabble, scrabble on the microphone, I babble as I fix the funky words into a puzzle. Yes, 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 on and on as I flex. Get with the flow, birds manifest. Feel the vibe from here to Asia. Dip, trip, flip, fantasia. Ow, you don't stop. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Give me more of that funky horn.
What's that? Yeah. Funky, funky.
Biddy biddy bop. Biddy biddy bop.
Funky, funky. What's that?
Biddy biddy bop.
Yeah.
Biddy biddy bop.
Funky, funky. What's that? Yeah. 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 Funky, funky.
'Tis the season to remember that some of us find this time tough, missing those who aren't here with us or struggling with holiday stuff. So 'tis the season to be asking, can I help you out in any way? I'm here for you if you need me. Just checking in. Are you okay? Get free conversation tips for the holidays at areyouok.org.au.
Yeah, and on that note of how Christmas time can be a struggle for some, we're now going to consult the owner's manual and have a chat with expert mechanic Bentley about one of her favourite wise quotes, this time from Eckhart Tolle, and how we might be able to apply what this quote is telling us over the Christmas period, if and when things get a bit challenging for us. So this week's quote is not so much a quote, it's my paraphrasing of some really good words from Eckhart Tolle, who is a very popular teacher at the moment. Most people would have heard of Eckhart Tolle. For those who haven't, he's a spiritual teacher and he's got a lot of people that love him and got a lot of good things to say. But the reason that I'm moved to share this one today is because my expert mechanic Bentley, who's in the studio with me today to talk about it. Good morning, Bentley.
Good morning, Soul Mechanic.
Bentley actually has put this one on the table for us to have a chat about. It's one of her favourite pieces of wisdom from Eckhart Tolle. And the essence of it is that whenever we've anything in life, especially a challenging situation, we have three options before us. In fact, I might even go over to Bentley to paraphrase this.
The way I would paraphrase this is that faced with a challenging situation in life, we have three options. The first option is to somehow change the situation. The second option is to accept the situation. And the third option is to suffer.
Brilliant. That's a much better job than the way I was struggling through it. So what are those three again?
Change the situation, accept the situation, or suffer.
So that's it. We've only got three options.
Well, this is according to Eckhart Tolle.
But also according to you a little bit to Bentley, because you've brought this to the table here this morning.
It is according to me a little bit, yes.
Okay. So I'm interested to know why this one resonates for you. So is that true in your life experience?
It is. And the reason I wanted to talk about it today is that Christmas is coming up. Now, I know that Christmas can be a challenging time for people. And I was just reflecting on that the other day, thinking there probably are many people who will have this situation going on. I'm not talking personally here, but supposing somebody comes into your home at Christmas because they're a member of your family and you actually have a lot of trouble with this member of your family. You really struggle when they're around. There's something about them that you just find very difficult in your own home. What do you do?
Wow, I'm sure many people can relate to this, whether it's Christmas time or not. There's just other humans that perhaps we don't get on with so well, but maybe it's easier to avoid those situations. And look, as I go into this, I'm by no means, and neither is Bentley, meaning any kind of judgment upon anyone. It's just human relating, and no one's right, wrong, better or worse. It's just some people vibe together and some people don't. So it's how to navigate that. And would I be right in saying
That's absolutely right, and I don't mean to be judgmental at all.
So have you had personal experiences like this that you've had to...
Not with my family and not at Christmas time, but I am aware that there are lots of people around who this is a big issue for.
And Christmas times can really bring this to the fore.
It can really ramp things up.
Can really ramp things up, yeah.
There's a lot of expectation and obligation associated with Christmas in my experience.
Yes, exactly. We're supposed to be having this wonderful time. We're supposed to be sharing a lot of love with our family. And often that is the case, which is beautiful, and the spirit of Christmas, but quite often it's not as well. So you've brought these wise words of Eckhart Tolle to the table as a way of maybe bringing that into a challenging situation like that. So let's just say, let's be practical. And we've got a situation, a Christmas situation. It could be any situation, but let's just say a Christmas situation.
Let's say Uncle Jim's coming.
Uncle Jim.
Now, Uncle Jim is a absolute drunkard, and he will make loads and loads of noise at Christmas, and he'll basically take over, and he's really hard to handle. So he comes into your home with an enormous amount of alcohol and does a great big carry-on, and you really, really don't want that anymore. What do you do?
Okay, fine. And of course, there'll be lots of people that will love Jim and have a lot of alcohol with him and have a mighty fine time, but that might not be your cup of tea. So, yeah, how do you handle Uncle Jim? That's what we're going to look at. And by applying Eckhart Tolle's you've only got three options.
You don't want to suffer, so that's not really an option, is it?
That's exactly right. So you've only really got two options. I mean, you do have the choice in that. But
could choose to suffer.
You could choose to suffer, and then you could tell your sad story and create suffering for others. And
of course, that's definitely an option, isn't it?
Not a very uplifting option. So we're not going to entertain that one. We're going to make the assumption that nobody wants to suffer, and if they do, then maybe go listen to another show or something. But we're going to write off that one. So the only options then are back to you, Bentley. Well, there are two options remaining for us.
Well, we can change the situation or we can accept Uncle Jim.
Right. Okay. So we can change the situation or we can accept Uncle Jim. So we're challenged. It's very difficult for us to accept Uncle Jim then, isn't it?
Very difficult.
It's very difficult. So then we've only got one option left then if it's we don't want to suffer and we find it really difficult to handle.
And there's no way we can change Uncle Jim. We've tried that in previous years and he is very resistant to change.
So changing that's like a two-sided equation, changing the situation, because you can attempt to change Jim, which is not recommended ever for anyone, anytime, to try and change someone. Not a good thing to do, even though we probably try and do that here and there.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't. It's like no. So changing the situation for me, yeah, okay, maybe you can have a go. I mean, when you're not dealing with people, it might be a lot easier. For instance, if you're in a situation that you don't like the music, well, you can go and change the music.
That's right.
Right. Like if you don't like this radio station, you can change the radio station. Okay, so you can actually change the outer. But when it's
a family member
when it's all
Christmas,
all people, trying to change people, not recommended. So the other option, if you're going to talk about, and the other option is to change, is to remove yourself from the situation.
I think so. Even temporarily, because sometimes when you just take a little bit of time out, as we talked previously, things are always changing. So if you find yourself becoming agitated and not able to handle the situation, even if you just go outside, do something different, just for 5 minutes, it could change things.
Yeah, so we've spoken about appreciation and the power of appreciation, and whatever we give our appreciative attention to, or even just our attention to, will tend to keep that alive. So by that measure, Bentley, what you're saying here is that if we've got Uncle Jim and he's really annoying us and we're sitting there feeling and stewing and really feeling not good, and it builds, well, and then, of course, alongside of that, we've probably got some judgments coming up around Uncle Jim about, he's a drunkard and he's a loudmouth and he's all this kind of stuff. And if we remain in that situation and continue feeling and thinking that way, then we're actually helping that situation stay alive. So we're not contributing in a positive way to the situation. In fact, we're making it worse. So
we do have the power to take ourselves out of the situation, even if it's just, you can say, oh, no, I need to go to the toilet or anything. We can just take some time for ourselves to calm down. That will help.
Okay, so remove yourself then.
And that will change the situation. Just doing that will change things.
Why is that? How's that?
Well, it'll change how you feel about things. It'll change your response. And who knows what other power, what else may intervene. Uncle Jim might have a phone call that takes him outside. You might be able to engineer that with somebody else. But things are always changing, so don't get stuck in something that's really painful and uncomfortable. Do something about it that is within your own power.
And possibly there's a relationship there too. So if you take the responsibility to, okay, you're really not happy with Uncle Jim, you're stewing, there's nothing you can do about it. It's building, and you have the awareness that that's going on inside of yourself. That's actually a really good point too. Is you're actually aware that you remove yourself to break that energy. You take yourself outside, you have a few big breaths of air, and you find a better place inside of yourself. And then you come back into the situation. Well, who knows? I mean, you've taken action. You don't know what it's going to be like when you go back in. It might be just the same, and that same emotion might come up, and you might be challenged, or as a result of you finding a better place inside of yourself, you might be able to re-enter that environment and actually feel a little bit more acceptance back to that.
That's
other
right.
option.
Who knows? But it will change things. Once you take responsibility for your own feelings and make some small positive action, things will change.
For sure, absolutely. So hopefully none of us have got too many Uncle Jims out there that we're not confronted with this challenging situation. But I think what Bentley's trying to tell us there is that in a challenging situation, in a Christmas situation with Uncle Jim or any other time, that if you find yourself getting worked up over another person in a social situation, then remove yourself and find a better place inside of yourself before you come back. And then things will be different, because things are always different, things are always changing, and then have another go. And then I suppose if it still feels bad, you remove yourself again. And if it remains that way, then you just remove yourself entirely. But the challenge there, back to Christmas time and family, is a social situation, you're with a bunch of people at the pub or something and you're not really enjoying yourself, fine, leave. But when you... Sometimes for a lot of people who've travelled a long way to family, they're staying there, it's actually very difficult to leave, and then you've got all the judgments around, people thinking that you're a weirdo or you're rude or whatever if you do. So you've got all that running with the family situation.
That's right. I think what you said before was if you can get hold of your own emotions and calm down and feel okay, you will be on the road to acceptance, which is a much more powerful. Perhaps you can see Uncle Jim through more compassionate eyes. His wife died last year from some horrible cancer or something. So he's really not a very happy person. That's why he drinks so much. So that may just give you enough tools in your kit bag to handle the situation and actually have a nice time, because that's what Christmas is about.
So really what you're saying there, which I agree with as well, we're kind of striving for acceptance.
I think so.
Rather, because we don't want to be leaving and having to move away. We want wherever we are, we want to be happy, and which essentially means if we're happy, it means we're accepting of the situation.
That's right.
I don't think you could actually be happy and be not accepting of the situation. So acceptance is really kind of what we're trying to get to. So back to the three options. Okay, we don't want to suffer. We don't really want to try and change somebody or leave. We do actually want to be accepting of wherever we are. Might actually be another measure of how happy you are.
That's right, and where other people are in life, and have some compassion towards that.
Yeah. And that's also to say that acceptance is not tolerance, because tolerance is actually very different. If you're sitting there just stewing, but you're just tolerating it because you're supposed to be there.
Which is a very uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being in a place of compassion, of acceptance.
And genuinely accepting. Yeah. Other people are not the same as us.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Well, Bentley, I like that one. Can be very challenging to implement, but the outcome can be very rewarding.
Good luck.
Good luck. Thanks so much for coming in and chatting with me this morning, Bentley, about those three options from Eckhart Tolle there, which could be very powerful for us if they mean anything to us. Hopefully our little chat has been a little bit meaningful. You're listening to Tune Up with the Soul Mechanic on 2BBB 93.3 FM.
You're my last breath, you're a breath of fresh air to me. I am empty, so tell me you care for me. You're the first thing and the last thing on my mind. In your arms I feel sunshine. Give up yourself unto the moment. The time is now. Give up yourself onto the moment. Let's make this moment last. You may find yourself out on a limb for me. Could you accept it as part of your destiny? I'd give all I have, but it's not enough. And my patience are short, so I'm calling your bluff. Give up yourself onto the moment. The time is now. Give up yourself onto the moment. Let's make this moment last. Give up yourself onto the moment. The time is now. Give up yourself onto the moment. Let's make this moment last. And we gave it time. All eyes are on the clock. Time takes too much time. Please make the waiting stop. And the atmosphere is charged. I trust, and I feel no fear as I do as I must. Give up yourself onto the moment. The time is now. Give up yourself onto the moment. time is now. Let's make this moment let it young. The time is now. Let's make this moment last. Give up yourself onto the moment. The time is now. Give up yourself onto the moment. Let's make this moment last.
2 Triple B FM.
We're sorry. Won't you come on home? We're worried. Won't you come on? What is wrong in my life that I must get drunk every night? Johnny, we're sorry. Won't you come on home? We're worried. Won't you come on home? Johnny, won't you come on home? We're worried. Won't you come on home?
There we heard from the Fine Young Cannibals with Johnny Come Home. Preceding that was Ghost Town by the Specials. And before that we heard Time Is Now, and there can be no arguing with that, by Moloko, an Irish-English electronic music duo formed in Sheffield, England. And a mighty lovely city Sheffield is. And turns out I was visiting there earlier this year and caught up with some great family members who may very well be streaming this show right now. And if so, here's a big g'day from Australia to Sheila, Steve, Tracy, Karen and Gary and their lovely children and animals.
Babagung orang nyanyi wajar yula darala. Father gave us the land in the dreaming. Maral kundi julu gurai yarang jagi. Every part of the earth is sacred. Nia yari julu maral gundi, maral julu ngiambandi. We're a part of the earth and the earth is a part of us. Ngai gungumbu. Garaway bari nyagego. Galawana Dawara. Hello, I've come back to see you. I am a friend, but don't be angry. Yamagay nganyo di barmaran, gungumbu bin. Galawana ngalgira. Here is my family, here are my friends, but don't harm us. Yam nginundi wajar, yam nganyo di wajar, nibur gungumbu wala. My land, this is your land, so let's be friends. Yenigay, this radio station, Triple B, is on Gumbangir homeland.
That's some, pardon me, local dialect there, some Gumbangia. And before that we heard from Yothu Yindi remixed by Gavin Campbell. And so that's also a wrap for today. Next week on the show, I'm going to be talking with local legend Gillian Anderson as our specialist in the workshop about the incredible Voices for Cowport organisation and the Bellingen Show and a few other things as well. Thanks so much for listening to Tune Up with the Soul Mechanic on 2BBB 93.3 FM. To take us out now and to take us up to the news is a track from Varish and the Humaniversity Sound, and that track is called Free. Have a great week. See you same place, same time next week. And between then and now, stay tuned to your soul.